I want to challenge the idea that we should be living to work. I love that concept here in America. And let me adjust my screen. What, Betty? Oh, then there's a ball. Yeah, we love that concept here in the States. But if we actually look outside of our homeland, we are one of the few countries that is like this. Most European countries, and this is my dog's leash, work to live versus live to work. Nearly 75% of female founders report burnout, and I'm actually part of that statistic. I wouldn't say I'm burnt out at this moment, but I have gone through burnout cycles before, and I'm sure I will again. Kind of comes with the territory. But I have implemented parameters that kind of help circumvent that, and those I refer to as my personal anchors, which is meals, movement, and connection. And that's what I kind of wanted to share today. I chose 3, but nobody wrote a rule book. There's nothing limiting how many personal anchors you get or what those should be. So like I said, my personal anchors are meals, movement, and connection, and I've structured this entire journey around those. So let's get into the anchors. Let's talk about anchor 1, which is food and meals and nourishing myself. So this is something that I have actually studied because part of the whole 128 collective is, working to live and not living to work. And with that comes a lot of inspiration from cultures outside of the United States of America. And so when it comes to meals and food, when you look at other cultures, meals are a protected and sacred time of the day. In America, skipping breakfast or eating lunch at your desk or kind of just like grabbing something on the go, quick meals that aren't really intentional, those are celebrated and very normalized. I'm not saying that there's anything innately wrong with that. It's just it's not a way that I prefer to live. If you look at European cultures, meals are a time for pleasure, for leisure, and for connection. For example, in France and Italy, lunch is typically a couple hours long affair. And in Spain, they have the siesta, where they're sent home to eat lunch with their families and rest before returning to work and finishing the day. In East Asia, food is treated as medicine. So a lot of their mealtime and their recipes are rooted in their philosophies. An example is that traditional Chinese dietary culture, they have the yin and the yang. And I believe, I need to double check myself, yin is cooling foods and yang is warming foods, and that is meant to be a balance for optimal health. In Latin America and in the Middle East, hosting is a deeply integrated part of their culture. Food is often described as a love language. There's a term used in other cultures, and I believe it's in Latin America and the Middle East, sobremesa, that is literally, if you translate it to English, I think it means over the table. And it is about the time after you're done eating that's spent just like chit-chatting and laughing and bonding and enjoying each other's company. So I've intentionally started treating my meals as non-working times. Am I on the level of other countries? Not yet. I would love to once I have a family one day. But I do try to carve out 3 intentional meals per day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I try to eat balanced and wholesome meals that optimize my health and that nourish my body and give me the energy to continue building. So that's why meals are my first anchor. Let's talk about my second anchor, which is movement. Movement is very important to me. I say that I train like an athlete. And I train like an athlete because my physical health has a direct correlation on how I show up and how I perform as a founder of a company. If I'm not in peak physical condition or I'm not pushing myself to my limits, my credibility and my leadership immediately diminishes itself. But the difference is I don't just do my workouts and move on. I train like an athlete. So what does that mean? That means managing my energy, my recovery, and my psychological stamina. It is more than just picking up heavy things and putting them down and going for runs. It means taking my sleep seriously. I try to avoid blue light a certain amount of time before bed. I try to get 8 hours of sleep when I can. I try to prioritize night and morning routines to optimize my circadian rhythm. It means leveraging active recovery activities like mindfulness, like reading, hobbies. Hobbies have become very important to me. Having something outside of work that I can channel my energy into and have that mind recovery time. So for me, I make sourdough bread. I like air dry clay a lot. and I really want to get into scrapbooking, so that's something that's kind of on the docket for me. Training like an athlete, it requires a whole nother level of discipline from yourself. It gets you very comfortable with being in discomfort and being uncomfortable and pushing yourself to your absolute limits. And it also teaches you where those limits are, both mentally and physically. And you gain so much confidence because you unlock these new levels that you never thought you could reach. So if you've ever trained for a race, this is a really easy example because, I remember when I'd never run a mile before, or like I hadn't run a mile since probably whatever age they make you do it in school. And I'm sure I walked most of that mile. And then I ran a half marathon, and then I ran another, and then I ran one in under 2 hours. And it was just like, this is crazy. It's such a confidence booster, and it unlocks new levels in you that you didn't know were there. That directly corresponds to you building and leading something. And like I said, you start to learn your limits, and you start to know like, okay, I can't get another rep. I've reached my limits. And then you push yourself a little past those, and then you start learning your new limits. That directly applies to building a business because you will have limits as somebody who's building something, and you need to learn how to recognize those, know when it's time to push past, and know when it's time to pull back. I schedule workouts every single day except for Thursdays and Sundays, and on Thursdays and Sundays I'm still getting my 10,000 steps in because it is so important to me to be moving and to have that anchor in my day every day. Because when you're building something, you don't really get a weekend necessarily. You have a different schedule. Having that anchor every single day really, really solidifies that. And if you want a cheat code to bringing more movement into your life, just go get a dog. And my third and final anchor is connection. And I'm gonna start off transparently here and tell you that I'm still building my village. And if you are an ambitious female who wants to build something, you need to understand a truth about entrepreneurship. And that is that the journey is extremely lonely and extremely confusing, because the kind of shitty truth is that nobody cares until there's something to care about. And that will go for a lot of people in your life that you're close to as you start building. I have no idea if what I'm building is something that people will ever care about or it will ever be worth caring about. But I believe in myself and in my vision, and I'm passionate enough about the problem that I'm trying to solve that I am literally willing to die trying doing this. You have to have that need, that want, that deep-rooted desire to go after a life like this. So when you're building, your life becomes dominated by power dynamics and stakeholders, and the stakeholders are going to change their mind daily and they're never going to apologize for it. And you alone will carry the ultimate responsibility on whether your company succeeds or fails. Getting out of fight or flight is a task. I probably just sent the viewers into fight or flight. But what I'm trying to say is that connection outside of work is a great way to de-escalate your nervous system, and that is why it is one of my 3 pillars. It allows you to not be, boss lady for a second. It allows you to remember that you're actually enough as you are. You're not really the sum of what you achieve or what you don't achieve, but you as who you are is enough. And connection is, I think, the easiest way to remember that. So building your village intentionally and only letting people have access to you that deserve access to you becomes more and more important the further you get into your journey. Your business is a machine, but you are human, and connection often brings me back to that. So like I said, I'm still building my village, but I have my animals, I have my support system that I am building, and I'm always carving out time for those people. And the people who don't belong will naturally start to see themselves out. You'll have to have some hard conversations, but remember that building a business is the ultimate personal growth exercise because it's going to stretch you and push you in ways you've never imagined before. And part of that is going to be shrinking your circle. So just remember that. And you don't need to go out and cut everybody off. This is going to be a journey. Let yourself move through it. Let yourself have all the experiences, and be really honest with yourself as you start to feel certain things. Sometimes distance is good, but connection is very important. So that is why that will always be one of my 3 personal anchors as a female entrepreneur. A lot of women have reported that they feel like they have to hide their life outside of work to be taken seriously and viewed as a professional. Personally, I say screw that. And those 3 anchors are just becoming part of my personal brand. People buy people, not things, and I want them to also be buying the beliefs. I want to be working with people and companies that are aligned to the vision of the 128 Collective, and that would respect my approach, the 3 anchors I've chosen. Build a business around your anchors, around your lifestyle, to avoid having deep periods of burnout that are going to cost your company deeply critical resources, and that's time and money. There's this masculine playbook out there of constant availability, and that works, but what I want to challenge all ambitious females to consider is that that's not the only playbook that works. There are multiple different playbooks to building a business, and so many of them have been proven. You don't need to be on all of the time, working in the wee hours of the night. That's not the only way. So I encourage you, your homework, take some quiet time this week, figure out what your anchors are and how that might factor into your current schedule or the current building phase that you are in. If you liked this video, please thumbs up, subscribe, and come back next week for another one.